would I personally consider that ICP is amazing? Well, even though I can't speak on anyone's behalf, I would say yes, even though nothing I say is financial advice. Now, this goes beyond just my kind of mindset of still thinking about $100 when it comes to ICP, which I'm going to talk about later on in the video. But even besides that, what fundamentally do I think is pretty amazing when it comes to the internet computer? It's something called Bitcoin DeFi, and this is supposedly, powered by the internet computer. So this is why I want to talk about it. I think it's kind of surrounding the internet computer, right? And here's the thing. Why do I think it is, pretty cool? It's because supposedly one of the features is building Bitcoin applications on ICP. That's pretty interesting because Bitcoin already has mass adoption. Now, fundamentally, I like the internet computer, and I actually like it a lot better than a lot of its competition. But even besides that, this is amazing because the internet computer, despite allegedly having an average cost per instruction that is over 40 million times less expensive than Ethereum, and also on top of that, for $1 worth of smart contract data, supposedly being able to have, over 200 million bytes, whereas on Ethereum, allegedly only around 44 bytes, despite those, pretty interesting fundamentals, in my opinion, the internet computer just isn't that popular, right, in the grand scheme of things. Market cap is pretty okay, but it's not as mainstream as Bitcoin. So having that Bitcoin DeFi aspect and then that being powered by the internet computer, and then one of the features, again, being able to build, Bitcoin applications on ICP, I think that is a pretty big game changer, actually, and I think it's going to bring more attention to something like the internet computer. Now, some people may be wondering, okay, if it's so cool, if it's so interesting, why is it not talked about as much? Well, I think it's because the price isn't doing that good. Now, we're seeing altcoins as of right now have a pretty okay recovery, but in terms of the grand scheme of things, ICP is at a pretty big pullback. But what I find even more fascinating was that I actually like fundamentally what's going on with the internet computer right now when compared to before. We saw a momentary moment of brilliance when it comes to ICP, and that was not even during an altcoin season, in my perspective, and it still did that. Now, when it comes to, something like Bitcoin DeFi, it's at least more recognizable, right, when it comes to the internet computer. Not to mention, I take a look at Caffeine AI, which is supposedly the world's first ever self-writing apps platform. That's kind of more so known now when compared to before. So I think that in the grand scheme of things, yeah, sure, ICP was doing better in terms of price not too long ago, but fundamentally, I think it's more recognizable. So when I take a look at the internet computer, sometimes you like to say, oh, it's done because the fundamentals became bad. Well, I really do disagree with that personally, just in my mind, because I don't think it became worse fundamentally. Now, again, the price is going down in the grand scheme of things, even despite, a slight recovery, which really isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. But besides that, still, despite that, I still like it fundamentally. So if the price went down, but fundamentals, I think arguably became better, I'm not going to say it's a bad project because it's just the price, right? I mean, the way you take a look at it is that there's a lot that affects the price, like selling pressure, just the sentiment overall and how well the altcoin space is doing. It's not necessarily tied to just, the fundamentals in some cases, and I don't see it here. And also, sometimes you like to say, okay, $100, still at that point, market cap considering current circulating supply is around 54 billion. What I find about that market cap is that it is not something I would find too maybe outlandish because, sure, we saw BNB reach a new all-time high during the cycle. We saw Ethereum, reach a market cap of around 500 billion, and that's basically half a trillion around that, right? And this is all during the cycle. And that was not even during an altcoin season, in my opinion. And also on top of that, if I kind of consider in the grand scheme of things how revolutionary the internet computer is, just that market cap, again, around 54 billion, it's not something that would necessarily, cause me to be like, oh, wow, that's such an outlandish market cap. I don't feel like that to me. Now, it doesn't mean it will happen because who knows, I cannot control anything when it comes to the internet computer, but in a hypothetical scenario where it did happen, it wouldn't surprise me, and that's why I'm still thinking about it. But besides that, $100 is around a 34x from here. Now, the way you take a look at it is this. If I'm just entering into this space right now, which I'm not, right? But then I'm just saying, if let's say I was doing that, and let's say I had three options, ICP, BNB, or Ethereum. Now, let's just think about this, right? Ethereum, during the cycle, reached a new all-time high. Now, there was a pullback, but then a pretty good recovery as of right now, again. And we see BNB, again, reach a new all-time high during the cycle. But is Ethereum or BNB going to do even over a 10x from where they are as of right now? I have a hard time believing that, actually. let's say in the next 5 months, arguably. Now, this is just my perspective, but yeah, sure, those projects are way more popular than ICP. But the way you take a look at it is that if I'm entering right now, what has their popularity have to do with me entering right now, right? I mean, it's kind of like irrelevant unless I entered a long time ago. So yeah, this is just my mindset, which is why I'm still dollar cost averaging. I'm not telling them to do anything, by the way, but I still am thinking about the internet computer because I just like its fundamentals. I like what Dfinity is doing. I think they're doing a really good job. And also on top of that, the internet computer can supposedly connect Web 2 and Web 3 without oracles, which I think is a pretty game changer type of move, or should I say feature, that I don't see many people talking about. And again, I get it, the internet computer is not the most popular project out there, but it's still kind of a feature that I find pretty impressive nonetheless, because we see something like Chainlink, which is a very massive project, right? And in case someone already knows about Chainlink, I just still want to explain what I kind of think about that and the fundamentals and why I think this feature, again, supposedly being able to connect Web 2 and Web 3 without oracles when it comes to their computer, as a pretty game-changing thing. Because if we take a look at Chainlink, what is the most popular aspect about it, in my perspective? That is something called, it's a decentralized Oracle network. And some people may be thinking, who cares about that? Well, again, an Oracle, it's basically a data feed that brings, off-chain data, or should I say data from off the chain, brings it over to the blockchain, and this basically helps, decentralized applications function properly, because without that, off-chain data, so to speak, a lot of these, again, decentralized applications, they just can't really function properly. So that's very impressive. Chainlink is very revolutionary. But the internet computer steps in and says, we're able to hypothetically, right, at least from what I've seen online, that it can connect Web 2 and Web 3 without oracles. So that is pretty impressive. I mean, imagine just bypassing that process. So in the grand scheme of things, I think the internet computer is very amazing. Now, some people may say, okay, does that mean that Chainlink is going to go down and ICP is going to go up? I don't think so, at least to the short to medium term, or maybe even the long term. I mean, Chainlink already has too good of an adoption. It's just way more popular than ICP right now. That's just the way to take a look at it. Don't get me wrong, I still believe in Chainlink, but I still want to allocate more towards something like ICP just because I think Chainlink's already kind of done its thing. Not to say that I don't hold Link, its native token, but then at the same time, even though I'm still holding it, I use it as my foundation, and then ICP is something that I kind of want to allocate more towards just because lower market cap, I like how it's pretty revolutionary, and it's still kind of up and coming, If I just, sometimes talk to people, sure, they know Bitcoin, they know Ethereum, but Chainlink is still not really that known. But then, in some cases, the people that I know that are more into this space, they know a little bit about Chainlink, right? So it's still kind of a little bit mainstream in the grand scheme of things. But then when I talk about ICP, it's even not as common for me to see, someone that I talk to that actually knows about the internet computer and all this. So I still think, yeah, sure, Chainlink hasn't become too mainstream, but it's pretty mainstream within the space. But then ICP, even despite being pretty massive, it hasn't really become mainstream even for the kind of projects that are below Ethereum and Bitcoin. So this is why I am still staying patient when it comes to ICP. If I'm just waiting for ICP to really become massive and then I believe in it, I just don't know what is the point for that. I mean, sure, ICP isn't the smallest project out there, but it hasn't reached the market cap, as of late, of 20 or 30 or 40 billion, where it's kind of more so known in the somewhat mainstream. So I'm still staying patient. Now, I'm not telling it to do anything, but whenever an altcoin season ever even wants to happen during this cycle, it's going to be beyond my control. I cannot demand that. So this is why I am just still staying patient and just waiting for a moment in time in which ICP does something, and that's about it. So in the next 5 months, whatever ICP is going to do, it's going to do. I have no control over that. All I can do is just hold and just prepare for a moment in which it does something, and that's pretty much about it. So I'm just still staying patient. I'm still dollar cost averaging. So what happens until now, let's say until March of next year, I'll have to wait and see, but I'm just still staying patient and just waiting. And I want to say thank you for watching. I greatly appreciate it. It's been Lee the Captain, and I'll catch y'all on the next one. I'm out. Peace. Bye.